Don't ever think for a second that he wakes up one day and says, oh, I'm not motivated, let me not work. No, this motherfucker is working day in and day out. It's so hard to do so because you guys are still relying on this word we call motivation to bridge the gap to take you from point A to point B. If you're constantly distracted, if you're constantly still dealing with fucking elementary level vices, how do you think you're gonna be the man that deserves these outputs? How? As of 2025, men's self-improvement has gained a significant amount of traction. Everybody wants to be jacked and stacked with a bad chick on their side. But when it comes to actually putting in the work to become that man, everybody bitches up and complains that they're not motivated. So today, I'm gonna show you guys how to overcome that hump by locking in and explaining what it truly means to be disciplined. First things first, fellas, I want you guys to remove the word motivation out of your vocabulary. Guys, motivation is a myth. When you're first starting your self-improvement journey, whether it's to get jacked, whether it's to get stacked, whether it's to, attract more women, whatever it is, you're not gonna be motivated, right? When I first got in the gym, do you think I was motivated to keep going and busting my ass each and every single day when I wasn't even seeing results? Obviously not. So whatever you're doing, whatever path you choose, you're not gonna be motivated. The real love for the game comes from putting in the reps each and every single day. When you look at someone that's jacked, you automatically think that they love going to the gym. They have the passion for the gym. And yes, they may have a passion, but there's still days that they don't feel like going. There's still days that they're not motivated. And especially when they were first starting, they were not motivated at all. I can tell you that right now. When I first started going to the gym, guys, I was not motivated at all. I had to put in endless amount of reps to get to the point where I'm at now, to a point where I can just force myself to go. I don't even have to think about it anymore. So these reps are what we call inputs, and that's gonna be the topic for today. All right, fellas, so we have the inputs and then we have the outputs. The inputs is the reps that I was talking about earlier. That's in black simply because that's the boring shit that nobody wants to do. And then the outputs is in green because that's everybody's desired outcome, right? And success is directly in the middle simply because we're not necessarily chasing the outputs. The outputs is the direct outcome of the inputs. We're really chasing the feeling of success and the freedom that you have once you're able to maintain both of these things. You have to be able to continuously do the inputs even when you've already received the outputs. That's what true success operates from. You have to get to the point where even when you got your desired outcome, you're still putting in the inputs simply because you have a love for the game. This is how you're gonna finally crack the code and figure out how these top 1% men are living the life that you wanna live while operating off of zero motivation. So this is very simple, guys, right? Say your output, right? Your output is to get jacked, boost your confidence, and effortlessly attract women. So if your output is to be jacked, boost your confidence, and effortlessly attract women, you already know that your inputs are gonna be going to the gym 4 to 5 times a week and tracking your macros, right? But why is it so hard to do so? It's so hard to do so because you guys are still relying on this word we call motivation to bridge the gap to take you from point A to point B. When in reality, that's false. That's completely false, and it's never gonna work, right? Guys, you have to be able to do these things even when you don't feel like it. And yes, it's hard, but this is exactly why not everybody is jacked. This is exactly why not everybody's rich. This is exactly why there's a bracket of 1% men. This is why there's a bracket of elite men. So I'm gonna tell you guys my come up story, right? So 2022, 3 years ago, I was in the gym. I was almost at the peak of my fitness journey, right? I was like 185, almost 190, right? Lean as hell, probably like 10% body fat. I was going to the gym. I think I just hit 315 on bench. Like, I was going crazy. I was actually feeling myself, and, I was feeling confident. I was in my mode, right? I was in my zone. I was actually locked in. And then after that short period of success, it felt like life just started getting worse and worse. Shit just hit the fan. More things just started happening, right? So the first thing that happened, I was dumbbell pressing 80 pounds, right, on an incline. And weeks leading up to this incident, my wrist did feel a little weak, right? But it didn't feel like it was gonna break. So I'm pressing the 80 pounds. On my last rep, I hear a pop in my wrist, right? Me being a guy, of course I didn't go to the doctors. I just thugged it out. I went home and initially I didn't feel anything, right? The next day, I woke up. I could barely lift my hand without feeling a tremendous amount of pain. I still went to work. This is at the time I was working at a grocery store called Publix, right? I went into work. I literally could not do my job. I was stocking the shelves. I literally could not even touch an item. As soon as I would touch the item and pick it up, take it off the shelf, I would feel a crazy amount of pain in my wrist, right? So that exact injury kept me out of the gym for 4 whole months. I could not lift a damn thing for 4 whole months. And we're just getting started. So that happened. Then my 2011 Kia, right? My 2011 Kia kept breaking down. I would drive it and the brakes would lock up. Took it to the dealership. Took it to the mechanic. Nobody could figure out what the hell was wrong with the car. Pretty much now I'm driving a car that could break down at any second. So at this point, I'm not depressed, but best believe that stress started kicking in. I couldn't even do the one very thing that I finally built up a passion for. I had a car that I didn't even know if it take me from point A to point B so I could actually make some money. And just when I thought it couldn't get worse, one random morning, I get a call from a random number, right? I pick it up. It's my friend of 15 years. It's his sister. She never calls me. And mind you, days leading up to this day, he hasn't returned any calls, hasn't returned any text messages. So at this point, I'm starting to freeze up a little bit. But I didn't really suspect anything crazy. So she calls me, says my name, she says what's up or whatever. And I'm like, what's up? Like, what's going on? She dropped the news on me. He passed away. So now at this point, I don't even know what to think. Now, don't get me wrong. Losing a friend of 15 years is probably one of the worst things that could, ever happen, right? It's definitely up there. But I didn't know how to feel. I froze. And for weeks, probably months on end even, I was just in a state of confusion and, self-doubt. I just didn't know what my next move was gonna be. At this point, I didn't know what to do, right? Now, I could have sat there, felt bad for myself, and just blamed everybody and everything, blamed God, resented everybody, just been mad at the world, but I didn't. I could have curled up into a ball and just cried my life away each and every single day, right? But I didn't. Now, again, don't get me wrong. The average dude would have folded in that situation, but I didn't. I made a whole 360. I bounced back. I did a whole 360. My wrist finally got better after 4 months. I finally got back in the gym, got all my gains back, and this very tragic moment just got me closer to God. So at this point, I knew it wasn't motivation. At this point, I knew motivation was false. At this point, I stopped saying motivation altogether because how could you be motivated after something that tragic, right? How? Till this day, I'm still feeling the effects of those tragic moments, right? So yeah, man, this is why I'm telling you guys, motivation didn't get me here. This is off of loving the game. This is off of wanting to improve. You don't get here, you don't get to your outputs by being a bitch and saying, oh, I'm not motivated. Because at the end of the day, if you truly love something, if you truly want to get good at something, if you truly want to win, you're gonna figure out a way. You're gonna figure out a way to get it done. It's done by the inputs. You can't skip a level. This is not a video. Life is not a game. Skip a level. You cannot skip doing your daily non-negotiable task. No successful man has ever skipped a level or has skipped doing his non-negotiables each and every single day and ended up successful. So why do you think you can? And sure, you may not love the game right now, but you have to be in love with getting better. And in return, just off the simple fact that you love to get better, you're gonna do these things by default simply because you know that's in the middle of getting better. So you're gonna do these things regardless of how you feel. Next, output. All right, so everybody wants to be rich and wealthy, right? So you already know you have to start a business, invest, and network with other wealthy people, right? But again, you guys always say, oh, I don't have the motivation. Guys, I have a client. When I used to train in Miami, I had a client who is 70 years old, multi-millionaire. This motherfucker is still working till this day. Till this day. He might keep working till the day he dies, if we're being honest here, right? This man, we're gonna call him Double G. This man, Double G, This man has a 6-bedroom penthouse in one of the richest zip codes in America. He has 5 nice cars, right? Rolls Royce, Phantom, Porsche GT3 RS, right? The list goes on. But this man has a lot of assets, right? Lots of wealth, lots of kids too, right? But the thing is about this man, he is working no matter how bad he feels. He's working no matter how he feels. Guys, I'd be in a session with this man and he'd be on the phone making deals. He'd be on the phone doing business in the middle of our personal training session, right? So now I'm thinking like, damn, when does this motherfucker get a chance to rest? Because this is supposed to be his time of rest. He's supposed to decompress in these sessions, right? This is a personal training session. So I'm thinking like, dang, like this dude is always working. This motherfucker is crazy. He's always working. And all of my other clients that were wealthy, right? All of my other clients that were wealthy, they had the same traits. They had the same mentality. They were all living in congruency with the men that they wanted to become, right? So don't ever think for a second that he wakes up one day and says, oh, I'm not motivated, let me not work. No, this motherfucker is working day in and day out, because if he wasn't, he wouldn't have the 6-bedroom penthouse. He wouldn't have 5 luxury cars. He wouldn't have a boat. He wouldn't have a private jet, right? All of these things come at the end of the hard work, right? Guys, and this is what I'm telling you, there's no shortcuts to this shit, bro. And where that motivation mentality really comes from is wanting an easy way out, right? It's easy to do the things when we're motivated. But what about when we're not? That's going to separate the winners from the losers. That's going to separate the men who actually get the outputs from the people who just stay in fucking confusion and you know, stay in this state of analysis paralysis, right? That's going to separate the two. That separates the winners and the losers, right? That motivation mentality. Because again, guys, there's days where these guys are not motivated, but they still do it because they fell in love with getting better. They fell in love with success in the outputs. That's why they keep going. It's not the motivation. Motivation is fake. It's fake. It's just dopamine. That's all it is. So going back to living in congruency with the man you want to become, guys, that all falls back into the inputs, right? If you're constantly distracted, if you're constantly still dealing with fucking elementary level vices, how do you think you're gonna be the man that deserves these outputs? How? Because I can tell you one thing, the men who are successful and have all of these outputs, they are not doing the things that you struggle with. They are not fucking smoking a vape pen, right? They're not doing that. They're not fucking beating their meat. They're not hitting a fucking dab cart. They're not doing any of these things. They're always focused. They're always locked in. And yeah, some dudes are degenerates and they go out to the club and do all the extra shit, right? But I can guarantee you one thing, on their come up, they didn't do that. Another thing about congruency, I remember when I was training at fucking Crunch Fitness, right? Commercial gym. And I noticed patterns in the clients that would, you know, the clients that would bullshit and give me excuses. You know, they would miss sessions. They wouldn't try their hardest in the session. You know, they would just half-ass everything. I noticed the patterns in them. And then I also noticed the patterns in my high-profile wealthy clients in Miami. They're always in motion. They're always doing something. They're multitasking. They're never idling because they understand that time is money and they're on my time. So they're never going to disrespect me by idling, right? Because they could easily be like, oh, you know, I got to handle this business call. No, they're doing the fucking business call and they're fucking working out. They're on the phone and they're fucking working out because they understand time is money. So there's always pieces moving, right? There's constant motion. Everybody in the building, all those buildings I was in, everybody's in constant motion. Nobody's idling. And that's the main difference that I seen between the clients, the wealthy clients, and then the average client when I was training at fucking Crunch, right? I noticed the differences. These people, the wealthy clients were living in congruency with the man that they became. And then the fucking, you know, the fucking brokey clients at fucking Crunch were living how they were supposed to. They were living up to their standards, their brokey standards. They were living up to that. And it all made sense. So this is what I'm preaching to you guys. You can't skip the inputs, bro. You have to live in congruency with the man you want to become. And this last one, faith. I'm not going to try to convert you guys or, you know, push religion on you guys, but one of the main key components of success, I believe, is having faith in whoever you believe, right? So I'm not going to put the inputs because, again, those could look different depending on whatever you believe. And, some of you guys may not believe in anything, but I truly believe that, God has a very strong influence on your success as a man, right? And again, guys, I'm not perfect. I sit up here and cuss all the time. I talk about like, having meaningless relationships with women and stuff like that. I feel like the main reason why a lot of us don't turn to God or, just lack faith is simply because we feel like we have to be perfect, right? Like I said, guys, I'm not perfect and by any means, but I'm trying. And again, that comes from loving a higher power, right? Knowing that he's going to take you to your destination if you just put in the inputs, right? So yeah, man, just having faith in general is just important, I feel like. So yeah, man, these are the things that you're going to have to do in order to be successful. But all right, guys, that was the end of the video. I hope this helped. I know a lot of guys who are chasing, success and chasing the elite lifestyle, they struggle with motivation. And I just wanted to kind of debunk this myth for you guys, because at the end of the day, like I said, you trying to be motivated, you just operating off of strictly motivation is never going to get you anywhere. So again, guys, I hope this helped. I want you guys to like, comment, and subscribe for the algorithm. And until next time, guys, I'm out.